Today, I talked to Fre Rammeloo, founder and CEO of Dexter Global Business Solutions, where they help companies in three main areas: procurement, supply chain, and improving profitability. Fre started her entrepreneurial journey at 43 with over 20 years of experience in procurement, supply chain, and chain management. In this episode, we talked about how Dexter Global Business Solutions generates leads, retain customers, and we also talked about the share of mistakes that Fre made along the way and how to avoid them. Hope you enjoyed. What's the most efficient way you found for generating leads for B2B? Because in this podcast, this is what we usually cover. It's like, how do people generate leads and how do they generate it successfully?
Yeah, so generating leads and sales, I actually found one of the hardest things in this role. So I think the way in which my business generates leads and how do you do that? I mean, there's many different ways for doing that. And I can give a couple of pointers. I think, as I said, know your product, know your customer, incredibly important. Target customers that have a need for what it is you sell. And that might sound as such an obvious thing, but I see so many people targeting me and trying to sell something else. Like, if you would have spent 2 minutes, you would have known that that is not a suitable sell at this point in time. And a shame, because people like me or in procurement might not need it for themselves, but they might need it for their customers. So spend time on getting to know your customer or your potential customers so that when you talk to them, you talk from a position of understanding. Make sure that you, let's say in your pitch, make clear to people what problem it is you're solving for them. And that can sometimes be really simple. If you sell comfortable shoes, tell people that you solve sore feet. In my case, I know that lots of business managers lie awake at night. They're thinking about their cost base, their profitability. How can I keep people in the job? I do that too. So I talk to them in that type of language. Let me give you your sleep back. Let me solve your problem. This is how we do it. And you don't need to worry about it. And we have the expertise. So I think that's important. Relationships. I cannot say enough about it. It's interesting. I've worked in different cultures, and some cultures it's more important than others. I definitely see a difference between Europe and the USA. Europe is good on relationships. The USA, if you don't have the relationship, forget about it. So spend time on letting people get to know you. Spend time on building your personal brand. And that was for me interesting as well, because in the UK and Europe, I'd been working for over 20 years. I had built that brand, people recognized me, a great name in the market. So you get a natural pull. And actually, we didn't have to do a lot of sales activity here. That's different. And I had to literally consciously build up that network. So network building, incredibly important. Be authentic, incredibly important. Know what customer you have to sell to, and don't be obtrusive. I think that's a couple of tips that have really helped me out. Other than that, don't just try out everything and anything. I've done that. Mm-hmm. I did the whole trial and error thing, and there's a lot more error than trial. So educate yourself on the things that other people say have worked and go for that.
You know, I always have this example. If you have a water that can cure a problem, you're not going to wait. You're going to sell it, but not in a sales way, in a way that, hey, I want to help you out. And if you want to take advantage of this, this is the opportunity for you. So that's a great thing. And the next question is, if you go back in time in your career, what is the biggest mistake that you're going to avoid? What do you think in your career you did that you're not going to repeat it again if you go back in time?
Oh my gosh, so many mistakes, right? And I think I'll give a few answers to that one. Actually, the first one is allow yourself to make mistakes and allow people in your team to make mistakes. I think that's the biggest mistake of all we make. People see mistakes as something really scary, and I get it. I mean, who likes to fail, right? And especially when you're an entrepreneur, you want to go out there, you've taken that risk, you want to let people know you succeed. You don't want to tell them, oh, I did that and that didn't really work out so well. But you know what? I learned an awful lot from my mistakes. They really hurt, but I'm still alive because I learned from them and I didn't make them again. So, and I think I've always been pretty open. And you know what? I've done some stupid stuff. Bad on me, but you know what? Good on me for learning it and not doing it again. And that's where I think it helps to also sometimes make mistakes on a smaller scale, because then you learn and it hurts a little bit, but you can dust yourself off. And that's the second thing. When you make a mistake, dust yourself off. Everybody makes mistakes. Nobody talks about it, but everybody does. So One of the mistakes I made, which is an interesting one and I would never do again, is as a small business, when you're starting out and when you're growing, you look at where your skill sets are. And one of the things I believed I was not very good at was sales, but it was also something that lots of people find really scary. Let's admit it, you have some people that have natural skill sets, but most of us don't. And I did it for a bit and I found it mortifying. And then I decided to hire somebody to do sales for me. Now, that is a mistake that I will never, ever make again. I mean, at a point in time, I will definitely hire somebody who will be able to do that well. But especially when you're small, or you're going to have a look and you're going to and and perhaps compromise on what the cost of that is, or work with an external company who gives you a really good price to do your sales. But then you find out that actually, especially when you're smaller, you are the brand. You as a person are part of that brand. So you know what you've been doing. You talk about that 20, 25 years of passion and understanding. So over time, when you grow, you need to step back with that a little bit because you can't do everything by yourself. But in the beginning, you are the motor. So shying away from that, for me, was absolutely the wrong thing to do. And what I learned is sometimes things might be uncomfortable, but you know what? I always push my team and I say, go out of your comfort zone. That's where you learn. But guess what? Nobody's pushing you as a CEO, right? So you have to push yourself. So I had a business development director. It did not work. He did not grasp enough what was needed. And as a result, that damaged my business and it didn't bring in the business I wanted it to. I went back to it myself and guess what? Things turned around. And that was a big learning point for me. So that was one of the many, many mistakes I made. Another one was that I thought I could just wing it because I'm a clever girl and I know what I'm doing. But you know what? Planning, making a proper strategy, thinking things through, putting it on paper and put it at the wall for you to look at and see, am I actually achieving those goals? Important as well. And I learned from that. So where in the beginning I was like, you know what, I'm just going to try a little bit left, right and center and people are waiting for me. They are, but until you really think through how you get through that journey, just as you were explaining, that's not going to happen. It's not just going to happen because you're good and you know that because other people don't. You need to get that across. You need to force yourself. And if you feel that you haven't achieved your sales target, you're going to work harder. If you don't set a target, there's nothing to fail on. And you know what? Most entrepreneurs, as I said before, don't like failing. So set yourself challenging targets and you'll get better. So that's just a few examples, but there's tons more. But I think the most important one is make your mistakes, own them, dust yourself off and move on. And never give up, I wouldn't say, but don't give up easily. Do give up though when you have something called sunk cost. That's a lesson I learned ages ago in my MBA and one of the most valuable lessons. Somebody in finance explained me about sunk cost, how people keep dunking money into something that's not making money because they don't want to step away from it because you'll have to again admit a loss. Sometimes it is better to admit your loss and to walk away and to move on. That lesson applies in finance, but it also applies in life. If you keep investing in a relationship where you don't get something out of it, move away. If you keep investing in an initiative, not getting anywhere, move away. If you have had 20 conversations with that customer and they keep saying that at a point in time they'll give you business and they're still not doing it, don't spend any more time. The 21st time is not going to make a difference. So letting go and not going into that sunk cost hole was for me a really important lesson as well, because sometimes it's hard to say, you know what, that didn't go very well, but it happens. So dust yourself off, move on. Don't give up easily, but do give up when it's sensible too.
One of the things that I'm facing as an entrepreneur is the motivation to keep going. And what's the reaction when you fail? Because you never know when is the time to give up. Or like, how did you realize when is the time to give up on something? Like, because you're like, okay, if I want to keep the motivation, I can do the next thing. Maybe I can do another round. Maybe I shouldn't give up. Like, when do you know exactly to let go and realize that, okay, I've lost?
Listen, that's a really hard question, right? And I think, I mean, the difficulty is I remember that somebody told me an interesting story about Amazon. I'm not even sure if it's true or not, but it always stuck with me, where it was like, okay, Jeff Bezos set up Amazon and in the beginning, nobody got the concept and it was really hard and he kept putting money in it and it didn't work. And I said, if you're not careful, and that's why I also was saying don't give up too soon. If he would have given up too soon, he would have walked away from that. I mean, try to imagine that, man. That would have been something the whole world would have not looked like it looks at the moment. So don't give up too easily. But that said, at a point in time, I think when you start to feel, you know what, I've tried something, a certain concept with 20 different people, it's not bringing me any sales. Perhaps you need to change something about your pitch. If you have, let's say, invested an awful lot in a project and you keep losing money on it, I mean, it's about what you can afford, but you do need to, as an entrepreneur, look, where do I put my money and where is it working for me? That's one of the things we do when we work with business and we say, you know what, do you really want to keep investing in that? And without going into too much detail, but it's interesting if you, for example, look at investing in online marketing. That's an important tool nowadays, and many people underestimate it. But we see everything from people not investing in it at all to people who invest in it but not to the amount of money that's actually effective, because what not a lot of people know is that Google algorithms don't pick you up unless you invest enough money in Google. So some people say, I invest, but then they don't invest enough and actually that money is wasted. So we say, you know what, either you invest more and you get on that radar if you can afford it, or if not, then actually the $1,500 a month you invest might be better off being invested somewhere else, which is more successful on a smaller scale. Or you're the issue in terms of not wanting to let go and not wanting to lose control. And that's something you need to learn as well, because you know what, as good and as shithot as you might think you are, you're not that at everything. There's always people out there who can do better. And if you want to strive to be the best, pull some of that expertise in.
Yeah, it's like always about delegating the things that you think your team can do and trusting them. Yeah. And one thing that in particular, I think you mentioned that brought up this thinking in myself is like, if you have a business that you think is going to add value, I think it's worth keep trying. Like the Jeff Bezos thing you said, Jeff Bezos saw the future. So he was like, okay, we are getting busy. And as we are getting busy, people have different needs. So he kept going because he knew this needs is coming up. And I think one of the good thing about knowing when to give up is if you have a great product and service and it's going to really serve some people. And if that's the case, you can probably keep trying a little bit more than a regular business that is not going to serve.
Absolutely, that's where you already get your story right. And that's another thing people need to understand. When you sell a business, whether it's a product or whether that's a service, storytelling is incredibly important. One of the most successful businesses of all time, we all know, that's Disney. Disney is all about storytelling, and they've got that down to a T. I mean, their employees are not called employees, but cast members. They made their own fairy tale, right? And we can all learn from that. So you're right. If you have a good proposition, but put it in the right context, have a story to tell. And I like the parallel you pulled in terms of Jeff Bezos was not necessarily just the guy with a smart idea. He basically translated what he saw happening in the world to, and how am I gonna serve that with my product, with my service? And then it becomes a story to tell. And then you can say, you know what, people are gonna be busy, and as a result of that, they don't always want to go in the store. Nobody could have ever thought that at a point in time we would hit a pandemic and everybody would have to order online because nobody couldn't go into the store. But oh my gosh, if you look at it from that perspective, that's a very different story than to just say, you know what, I can sell you something online and that's it. And because that doesn't tell a story. So I think storytelling, also going back to your earlier question in terms of how do you generate leads, have a story to tell, be interesting, make your product and service interesting, show people the positive effect it has on their lives, on their business, on their comfort, on whatever it is. What is the impact you're making? And tell a good story.
Hey guys, thank you for listening this far. If you're enjoying this, I would appreciate it if you can subscribe and share this episode with anybody you think needs to hear it, so the algorithm can also help this podcast to reach more people and help more people out. Let's get back into the episode. Let's get back into the lead generation. How do you retain your clients once you generate the leads and you bring them on board?
That's actually a really interesting question, and something that's helped me tremendously in my business. Most of my business until now has actually come through referrals and return business, not so much, and also my growth, not so much through spending tons on marketing. But my company values are ABC. We why would you do that? But you know what? I think company values are really important, and my team knows to stick to them because it helps in that specific process of retention. So ABC stands for agile, brave, and collaborative. So when we work with our customers, we are very agile. Sometimes they need something that's a bit different to what we want to do, but we listen to them and we have the ability to adapt. That was really important because when, for example, COVID happened, we had to change our way of working. We were always on site with all of our customers, and then all of a sudden we couldn't do that anymore. But we adjusted and we adapted and we listened and we asked what you find important and what you want, and we adapted to it. So being, let's say, agile, incredibly important. If your customer asks you for something that's impossible, rather than say it's impossible and won't, say, you know what, that's a hard question, but let me see what I can do for you. And if I can't do it, if I can find someone who can, or if I can get as close to it as possible. Being brave, because when you just go in and you just do a decent job like anybody else does, that's okay, but you won't necessarily be remembered. And it's the same, and I always say that, especially to when I work a lot with online retailers, small and big, and I say to these people, I said, you know what, loyal customers like you had 20 years ago don't exist anymore. People are much cleverer nowadays. They go online, they find these products. So when you sell a black dress, they'll go and they'll find 20 similar black dresses other places. They'll compare prices. So you need to have something unique. And for that, you sometimes need to be brave and do something different. And I've seen bravery in many different ways, shapes, or forms. I'm working with a company who said we stopped paying bonuses because there was always nepotism and stuff like that. So everybody gets the same. And you know what? That's brave. That's different, but it sticks with people. And actually, that makes me want to work with them because I think that's actually kind of awesome. And I'm sure that some of their customers have the same because they are very, how do I say this? Corporate socially responsible, and young people find that important. And be collaborative, because if you come and you do stuff to companies and you don't explain why, I mean, sometimes you have to increase your prices, right? And in the current times, energy prices going up, this, that, and the other, employee costs going up. But don't just go to your customers and write a letter and say, I'm implying a price increase. Go and explain and say, I'm really sorry, I don't want to do that, but my business is getting hit as well, and I don't know where else to go. I'm going to try to do what I can. I will try to drive my costs down, and if I can, I'll pass some of that on to you as well. So it's a way of working, and just be freaking awesome at what you do, right? Make sure that you deliver on time, deliver to promise, do not overpromise. Nobody is held by that. It all sounds so incredibly obvious, but I'll tell you, it isn't. I have seen so many times that people do not do that.
One thing interesting I found in what you said is many people, they're afraid of being vulnerable. So what they do is basically they try to protect themselves from their weaknesses. And if there is something wrong from the business side, they try to hide it behind finances or whatever. But as you said, like being honest and being like forward with your problem. Hey, this is where I'm right now. This is the situation, and we have to increase our prices. I think that's the most effective way because it's a collaboration. So if they understand it, great, we can move forward. If they don't, it's okay. I'm going to keep moving forward with the other clients I have.
I think it's important, and you touch on a couple of really important things. As you say, sometimes when you cannot do something, ask for help. Always be honest, and actually the whole thing in terms of the mistakes as well. Don't hide behind your team, right? Don't shove that mistake onto your team. I think one of the most important things leaders need to learn when you want to run your own business is, as a leader, you're a servant. And that sounds really bizarre. And you need to show leadership, and you need to set direction, and you need to be inspirational. But you need to always do it from a perspective that you are responsible for making your team the best they can be. My mistakes are my mistakes. My successes are my successes. I can leave a legacy. I can do the stuff that I really truly think I'm good at. I can be passionate. I can say no to that customer that I don't think is going to work. You know what? It has got a lot of benefits, but don't do it for the money. Don't do it because you think you're going to work less. I've never worked as hard in my life as I did now. And I've worked hard also when I was in the corporate world. But you do it because being an entrepreneur is just awesome. When it's for you, it's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is exactly what I'm feeling like day to day, and explaining this passion. Because sometimes, like when I was starting, everybody was like, it's a mistake or you're going to fail, and everybody was afraid of failure. And I was lost in it. I was trying to fit into society, and that fitting in will just push me away from my happiness. And then once I started to trust myself and getting to know, hey, this is me. Once I attended a few seminars and webinars, and I saw, oh, most of the entrepreneurs are thinking like me. So I'm not the weird person here. I'm not the guy who's odd. It's just we have different passions. And once you have that, it's a great thing. And what the motto we have in our company is like, if we succeed, it's the team. If we fail, it was me as a leader. So the success, of course, I was a person who played the role, but the success comes from the team, because without them, there was no company. So this is a great thing to remember.
Absolutely. I mean, I love how you talk about that. And actually, there's an important lesson in that as well, right? So the thing is, as much as we want all people to be nice and kind and good, pragmatically in life, not everybody is. There's a couple of real big, let's put it, a-holes out there, right?
Exactly.
Always people that try to undermine you. And you know what? They look at you, and I tell you, deep down inside, they're just thinking, I wish I had the bravery to do that myself. Because you know what? Mm-hmm. Making that step that you did as well, becoming an entrepreneur, it is a brave thing to do. It is really scary. You give up. In my case, and I'm sure it's the same for you, a very cushiony life. As I said, I had a really high income. I had other people that sometimes were awake more at night than I was, whereas now I'm the one lying awake at night because I have a big responsibility on my shoulders. If I don't make this work, it's not just me and my kid I can't feed. It's also my team that has families that they need to feed, right?
Exactly, 100%. So the other question I have for you is, how do you differentiate your company from competitors, going back to the lead generation? Because B2B companies, B2B marketplace is getting crowded every day. Like, how do you differentiate your company from your competitors?
We differentiate on price, but we are not the cheapest in the market, because that's not necessarily what I think is important. We differentiate ourselves, I think, very much through our values. So the agile, the brave, and the collaborative in the type of business that I'm in, right? So consultancy. Most people have a good knowledge base, but I don't see a lot of bravery. I see a lot of standard stuff and a lot of how we go into a business. We do discovery. It takes a really long time. Then we come with a report and we charge a lot of money. I go into a business with my team to provide a solution to people and say, you know what, I know you've got a problem. I'm not going to tell you a lot about that because you know that yourself. Otherwise, you wouldn't have brought me in. And the thing is, while I, let's go of loss of control, I am visible to all of my customers. Sometimes I pick up and I do a bit of delivery myself. People know I'm invested, that I am all over my team. I know what's going on, what's happening, and they like that. I think the other thing that distinguishes us is we're gutsy enough if we can't do something to say, sorry, we cannot do that. So when I take something on, I will deliver all day, every day. If I see something and I'm asked to do it, I'm like, you know what, I'm not the best answer for that. I will honestly tell my customers and I say, you know what, cannot help you with that. I can help you finding somebody who can. And I think that's where we differ as well, because in consultancy, I see so many BSing. You know what I mean, right? It's unreal. Don't spin people's stories. If you don't know how to do something, step away from it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think one thing you mentioned is people who have visions, like big visions, they want to leave a legacy. And if that's your goal, you're not here for the short game. You're not here to just gain something and go out. And I think that brings the fun, the collaboration, an ever-growing company that you enjoy to be part of, and you never get tired. And with that, probably it comes the good results of maybe good network, maybe financial freedom, and the rest of the things that everybody's like looking for.
Super important message. I think that's also almost a really nice closure of the conversation we had, right? Yep. Because what you're basically saying is be in it for the long haul.
So my last two questions that I have from you is, what's the vision? What's the next step for you and your company?
The next step for my company is to just grow. Never stop growing. And the reason why I'm doing that is that I'm investing an awful lot of my money back in my business. I've got some really great motivators. First of all, I love this country. Many people say that that's stupid, but you know what? I'm entitled to my opinion. I love it here. I'm an E2 investor, which means I need to be profitable. I need to employ Americans, and then I can stay. That's the great motivator. I want to stay, better make it work. The more I grow, the easier it gets. The more people I employ, the more likely I am to ever get a green card, which I don't have. I just get 3 years of you try it out. And if you do well, you get another 3 years, right? And you know what?
Exactly.
Nothing wrong with that, because people are as well like, oh, that's terrible. You know what? It is. Sometimes it keeps me awake at night, but it's also great motivator. So we're going to grow. The other reason to grow is growth people is de-risking. If you grow, grow and grow, losing that customer will hurt less. So if you, for example, are in retail and you've got 1,000 customers and you lose 100, that hurts. If you've got 10,000 customers and you lose 100, it hurts less. If you've got 1 million and you lose 100, you won't notice it. So growth is healthy, but it needs to be profitable growth. So my thing is just profitable growth. I know I'm good at what I'm doing. I know there's tons of people out there who need me and my team. So I'm just going to go find them and I'm going to grow and not give up. And I'm going to keep trying and I'm going to keep making mistakes. And you know what? I'm also going to keep enjoying the journey, because I very much have and I very much will.
That's awesome. I mean, it was a fantastic conversation. I really enjoyed to get your wisdom through the process and see how you got yourself where you are and what's your perspective on business and, lead generation. It was a great conversation. If people want to get in touch with you, how can they get in touch with you? What's the easiest way? What's the best way?
They can get in touch with us through all the social media. So I'm personally on LinkedIn, as is my big business, Dexter Global Business Solutions, but we know usually as Dexter, but Dexter GBS US. They can go to my website, www.dextergbs.us. There's many different ways, and talk to me, drop me a note, drop me an email, fre.rammeloo@dextergbs.us. I will talk, I will pick up the phone, we will respond on social media, we respond on the website. We love to talk. If people just want a little bit of advice, come and talk. We are not very difficult, we're very approachable. I love getting to know new people. So yeah.
I appreciate having you on the show, and it was a great conversation. I hope I can talk to you again on this show.
Thank you so much, Sam, for inviting me. Really appreciate it. Love talking to you, and everybody who's watching or will be watching. Have a great day and stay great and be great.